Hello class, this is the final PowerPoint discussing some of the camera movement and techniques used in the film Moonlight. As we talked about, Moonlight's director, Barry Jenkins. Barry Jenkins' star was already on the rise, but Moonlight was the film that probably launched him into mainstream and film stardom and success. As we've talked about, his presentation of Moonlight drew heavily from his own background and own experiences. Along with Barry Jenkins' autobiographical elements infused into the film, Terrell Alvin McCraney's play in Moonlight Black Boys Look Blue was also the basis for the entire story. So this was also similar to Jenkins. His play was very autobiographical, drawing on his own experiences. And so you had a mixture of Jenkins' autobiographical experiences and McCraney's autobiographical experiences coming together to present the play. McCraney has also discussed how one of the driving motivations thematically for him to write the play was to discuss how communities without power seek to legitimize identities by trying to enhance and harden a certain masculine identity or masculine stereotype. So, Moonlight, our protagonist, Chiron, is a character that is shown through three stages of his life: Little as a young boy, Chiron as a teenager, and Black as an adult. This shows his struggle as a gay youth and man throughout his life. It is his movie and his story. However, Jenkins made the unique choice to have three different actors portray the character at different periods of their life. Filming. One of the things that is immediately noticeable about the film Moonlight is that it is a gorgeous film to look at. Colors, skin tones, skylight, water, the use of lights is all done to create a beautiful, rich, and vibrant and gorgeous movie to look at. James Laxton, the cinematographer and longtime collaborator with Jenkins, says that they chose the camera that renders skin tones the best, especially for those people of color. He said it's a format, a kind of lens that is associated with large blockbuster movies, the Star Treks, the Star Wars. It's for grand stories and big scope thoughts. Maybe subconsciously, we chose it for Moonlight in an effort to depict this community in a new light. Filming. Jenkins has stated he wanted a dreamlike feel to the film, but also wanted it rooted in the color, light, and setting of Miami. So he wanted to have both this rich, evocative experience as well as a real grounding in a place and feel that would be immediately recognizable to anyone from the area or to us as viewers. Some of the key themes in Moonlight. Masculinity is probably the key theme of the film. Masculinity is woven into discussions of sexuality, race, culture, and gender. And the importance of father figures in the development of this masculinity is also a key part of the theme. Act 1 focuses on Chiron as the character Little, as he's called. Little is an only child, and the kids call him a slur before he even knows what the word means. The calling Chiron the gay slur, in this act, Chiron's external persona and his internal self interact with each other. And it is by this result of the slur, his own identity is basically shaped by the community in which he grows up. This constant negativity thrown at Little significantly impacts his overall perception of himself. He doesn't want to be bullied, but he doesn't want to be someone that he is not. And without anyone there to guide him or support him, Little's perception of himself is shaped by the bullies who torture him every day. Little has been named and identified before he can be even certain about himself. We could call this Little being named before knowledge. As just a young child, Little is unaware of who he is or who he even will want to be, but the community and other kids, through their act of bullying, are placing an identity onto him. So we can see this sort of theory worked out according to the work of Louis Althusser. Althusser was a Marxist critic and a theorist of society, identity, and one of his major works looked at the way society worked to create concrete individuals as subjects. So pervasive is the creating of subject that it forms our very reality and thus appears to us as true or obvious. So essentially what Althusser is saying is that society works to form and make you into a subject of society, stripping out all of the individual ways you as a person may not fit the role others see you in. Althusser gives an example of this process of subjugation as the example of hello on a street. When someone says hello, it enacts the rituals of ideological recognition and guarantee for us that we are indeed concrete, individual, distinguishable, and naturally irreplaceable subjects. Essentially, the hello is a ritual of ideological recognition. Society waves hello at you, and by responding to society, you are enacting and in some way working with the very subjugation that you are participating in. A hello works two ways. Someone says hello to you, and you recognize that hello. In this way, Little has been named and identified as other or different by the bullies that make him quote-unquote gay. Little's simple reaction to their bullying is, in a societal analysis, a way of recognizing their identification and subjugation of him. Into this, we have the figure of Juan. McCraney, during an interview, corrected the interview and said that Juan is a father figure. The interviewer who said that Juan is a father figure but also a drug dealer. McCraney corrected this interviewer and said that he likes to think of Juan as a father figure and a drug dealer. This correction shows that one does not negate the other. The totality of the character of Juan is conflicted, but he is conflicted character of a good man. Juan tries to provide guidance and wisdom. His presentation on screen reinforces this centrality. He is oftentimes shown as the dominant figure in the frame. He is shown above Little, providing advice, comfort. He's also shown leaning into Little in ways that show that he is looking to protect and cover for Little. The "and" in this description of Juan is conflicted because the first comments on the relationship between masculinity and society. Juan's positive qualities are trapped in and by the society that has shaped and defined him. He understands the damage he does, but he is presented as a man who is caught without a way out. The scene in which he is confronted by Chiron's mom, Paula, we definitely see the fact that he recognizes that he is in a way hurting Chiron, all right, as she tells him that she is getting the drugs that make Chiron's life so hard from him. Juan's final scene, the dinner table scene, is an important statement about Little and his burgeoning sexuality. Juan, unlike Little's mother, doesn't judge him. Instead, he offers a positive message of pride and acceptance. Yet, at the end of the dinner table scene, we see Juan slightly out of focus when Chiron, as Little, asks him if he is a drug dealer. We can tell that he is not proud of being a drug dealer. And also, being out of focus stresses how, for Little, Juan is still a conflicted father figure. As the Chiron section of the film begins, we see a shift in color tones and a shift in character. Little now is not so little, yet he still has some heartbreaking problems. Chiron is portrayed as confined and bottled up. We often see him caged or framed against things that square him and surround him. We see scenes of Chiron where he is constantly shrinking, hiding, or covering himself with his backpack. The actor, Ashton Sanders, performs Chiron with an intense, pressed-lipped focus. This shows that Chiron is trying to keep all of this internalization, all of the feelings he feels, bottled up. Kevin and Chiron, however, have a different moment, the moment on the beach. Kevin and Chiron have an unspoken connection, and we see this when they share the intimate moment together on the beach. In this moment, Chiron finally feels he has someone who can understand what he is going through. The breeze that Kevin describes is a symbol for the tranquility that everyone is searching for, an escape from reality just to feel at peace with yourself. The sound of the breeze occurs in many instances in the film, but usually it occurs when Chiron is with Kevin, or I would add, thinking about Kevin. One of the ways that the breeze works as a mise-en-scene element is that it is often depicted visually. Remember, mise-en-scene are things that appear in front of the screen. So the breeze, when the characters catch that breeze, is often shown moving clothing, moving hair, or through condensation. Breeze thematically works like the water is presented in the film. It is through water you can go anywhere. Breeze doesn't follow a set path. The breeze goes where it wants to go. The final retreat of Chiron, when he fades into black. The one time Chiron definitely does not hear the breeze is when he is with Kevin and Kevin is forced to fight him at the end of Act 2, instigated by the bully Chiron. When Kevin punches Chiron in the face, we don't hear the sound of the breeze that normally accompanies the two boys when they are together. Instead, we hear complete silence. This silence resembles a sort of death. It is so silent in the scene that it occurs almost like a death has occurred. The death in this act is the death of Chiron and the birth of Black, who emerges in Act 3. Chiron fades to black here, completely closing off the identity we see in Chapter 2. Black, a shield of armor. In the third and final section of the film, Chiron physically takes on the role of Juan. He becomes a drug dealer and drives a car similar to the one Juan drove. One of the most symbolic signs is the crown on Chiron's dashboard, a similar crown to the one we saw in Juan's car in the first act. Black is a hypermasculine individual, and Chiron's attempt to deflect and try and compensate for the memories of his childhood. The visual language of this introduction to Black is shown through a bunch of close-ups and a montage of his activities, to show us this new Chiron in all of his physical change. One of the other things we get in this introduction to Black is that he is very lonely. Black's personality of armor comes at a cost. Black is portrayed as lonely and haunted. His apartment is sparse. We do not see him engage with friends, only sort of colleagues. He is haunted by nightmares of his childhood, like the one of his mother. Notice how in that scene, the backward motion, the chaotic string music, and harsh, vibrant lighting all make for a nightmarish scene. Finally, we could point to Black opening his fridge as another symbolic image of the breeze. He is trying to catch that breeze he and Kevin talked about. But, as we see, the discomfort and inability for Chiron to be Juan is because he is not Juan. And one would think that if Juan was there, he would tell him that it would be okay to be Chiron instead of a Juan clone. After Kevin calls Chiron, Black has another dream. This is the second dream of Scene 3. Remember, whenever filmmakers repeat various activities, whether it be dreams, an acting choice, or words, it's always something important. Here, Kevin is presented warmly, with white color tones and white natural lighting. He breathes out smoke in a way that should remind you that there is a breeze there to be caught. Black has a nocturnal emission about the dream, which shows that even if he can close out the part of himself, his body and his unconscious desires will not. He can change outwardly. He can rebuild himself hard into a set of armor, but he can't change his inner nature and desires. As the film reaches its climactic scene in the diner, Black has a brief moment of reconciliation with his mother. This is Jenkins' attempt to show some redemption for the character of Paula, who has been a very unsympathetic character up until this point. Paula here is presented as older. We see her face more in focus. The lighting in this back garden frames her in a more natural setting. Her face is often centered in the reverse shot conversation, and she tries to offer him advice. She tries to tell him that his heart ain't gotta be black like hers, which of course references the name of this chapter and hints at maybe a hopeful transition for Chiron as the movie concludes. The dinner scene, the diner scene. The diner scene is the most famous scene of the film, probably eclipsing the scene in the water where Chiron is being taught how to swim. Here's what Barry Jenkins has to say about it. The whole sequence in the diner is meant to function as time outside time, because this character is being shaped by society so much. The character is Chiron. The idea for me was to place the characters in a scenario where there was no room for evasion. I wanted them, in very simple terms, to have to look one another in the eye. The dinner scene. So let's take a look at some of the thematic elements that we've talked about. Let's start off with the lighting. From the opening of the scene, as Chiron approaches the diner, lighting is at play. Laxton, the cinematographer, placed lights within a tree to cast dappled shadows on the character as he walks beneath it, creating an entirely new visual interest from the very second. Outside the dinner, the bulbs were changed to give a more blue hue. Inside, much of the lighting is practical and natural, coming from golden, warm hanging lamps and overhead lighting. Laxton has said that some LED lights were used to lend some softness to the actors' faces. Camera placement and eyeline. Laxton says he often put the camera as close to the actors as possible, basically touching them and getting the lens near their eyeline. This was a conscious choice in order to bring the viewer into the conversation between Chiron and Kevin, so it feels as if those characters are speaking to the audience as well to each other. Some of Moonlight's most impactful moments are when characters look directly into the lens, confronting the audience in emotional moments. The eye contact is placed here at a key moment to convey the profound connection between two characters meeting after several years apart. The final conversation. The final conversation between Chiron and Kevin uses all of the techniques to the diner and brings them to their conclusion. The direction and mise-en-scene elements are continued in terms of eyeline, natural lighting, soft lighting. Close-ups and consistent eye lines draw the viewer into this final conversation. Hopefully this will help you write your research paper on the film Moonlight, and best of luck.